Alright, so here we go. We are going to read about AWS CLI. We go to the control command output. So, control command output from the AWS CLI. This section describes the different ways to control the output from the AWS CLI. Customizing the AWS CLI output in your terminal can improve readability, streamline scripting automation, and provide easier navigation through larger datasets. The AWS CLI supports multiple output formats, including JSON, text, YAML, and table. Some services have server-side pagination for their data, and the AWS CLI provides its own client-side client-side features for additional pagination options. Okay, so that is why. So, so that is why. Oops. That is why. That is why. That is why there's a S3 AWS S3 LS to list, I think. And there's also AWS S3 API get objects. Hold on, let's see. S3 versus AWS S3 API. Okay, difference between. So difference between APIs, AWS S3 and AWS S3 API when granting permission to a canonical ID. In order to upload file to an S3 bucket, we use the following CLI command, and this command works fine. The AWS S3 API doesn't support uploading files greater than 5 GB, which will have to start supporting soon. I tried doing the uploading using AWS S3, the high-level API instead. The command now looks like. So see, there's an AWS S3, and then there's AWS S3 API. S3 has CP, then S3 API has put object. I'm trying to understand how the two are different and why one throws access denied while the other doesn't. However, this command throws an error occurred access denied when calling the upload part. So there's an explanation here. The S3 API set of commands is a one-on-one mapping with a low-level S3 API. The S3 set of commands adds some higher level functionalities like syncing, for example. To be able to do so, it often requires multiple API level permissions. So behind the scene, a simple AWS S3 CP command might use multiple low-level APIs, and callers needs permission to each of them. You need to add all low-level APIs in the actions in section of the IAM policy. There is no way to check what is the list of low-level APIs used by a high-level command. In your example, it looks like upload part is the missing one. You should try to add it to the user rule or group policy and try again until you get all of them. Actions, S3, upload part. You can also try with a user having admin permissions. Okay, so that's the difference. Okay, Okay. So where are we now? Okay, so the AWS CLI both. Okay, so let's continue where we are interested in, and it's confusing us. Is this S3 pagination, AWS CLI pagination options? This topic describes the different ways to paginate output from the AWS CLI. There are primarily two ways to control pagination from the AWS CLI: using server-side pagination parameters or using your default output client-side paging program. Server-side pagination parameters process first and any output is sent to client-side pagination. Can we read that again? Server-side pagination parameters process first and any output is sent to client-side pagination. Server-side pagination. For commands that can return a large set of items, the AWS command line interface has multiple options to control the number of items included in the output when the AWS CLI calls the service API to populate the list. Okay, so that is the options. The options include the following: no pagination, page size, max items, and starting token. By default, the AWS CLI uses a page size determined by the individual service and retrieve all available items. For example, Amazon S3 has a default page size of 1000. If you run AWS S3 API list objects on an Amazon S3 bucket that contains 3,500 objects, the AWS CLI automatically makes 4 calls to Amazon S3, handling the service-specific pagination logic for you in the background and returning all 3,500 objects in the final output. Okay, so if you're going to draw this, so the S3 API, the S3 API list objects. So this is a low level S3 AWS CLI, low level command as from what we learned. So and then this one here, the AWS S3 command is the higher level. So this low level get object, if you have 5,000 items in your S3 bucket, the CLI is going to execute 5 calls, one, because it's setting page size of 1000, has a default page size of 1000, so it's going to execute 5 calls, 1 2 3 4 5, to get all the 5,000 items and to retrieve it for you. Okay, and then how to use the no pagination parameter. The no paginate parameter. The no paginate option disables following pagination tokens in the client side. When using a command, by default, the AWS CLI automatically makes multiple calls to return all possible results to create pagination. One call for each page. Disabling pagination was the AWS CLI only call one. Has the AWS CLI only call once for the first page of command results. For example, if you run AWS S3 API list objects on an Amazon S3 bucket that contains 3,500 objects, the AWS CLI only makes the first call to Amazon S3, returning only the first 1,000 objects in the final output. Okay, so if you run AWS API list object and then that contains it, the AWS only makes first call to returning objects. If you put a no paginate, okay, so if you put no paginate on a list objects, it will only get the first 1,000 objects because we set the page size. We didn't set the page size. The default is 1,000. Okay. So how to use the page size parameter? If you see if you see issues when returning list commands on a large number of results, the default page size might be too large. Okay, so this can cause calls to AWS service to exceed the maximum allowed time and generate timeout error. You can use the page size option to specify that the AWS CLI requests a smaller number of items from each call to the AWS service. Okay, so instead of 1,000, you can set it to like 50 only. Okay, because your items here are very large. So for example, each item is 1 GB. So if you're going to request 1,000, because we did not set the page size, it's going to take time to retrieve. Like for example, 1 GB is 1 minute, so it's gonna be 1,000 minutes. Okay, so that's why we set it to like maybe 50 page size, so that it will only retrieve 50 items, and this is much quicker. So instead of 1,000 minute, it's gonna just be a 50-minute operation for each request. Okay, so if you where are we now? The AWS CLI still retrieves a full list but performs a larger number of service. What? The AWS CLI still retrieves the full list but performs a larger number of service API calls in the background and retrieves a smaller number of items with each call. This gives the individual calls a better chance of succeeding without a timeout. Changing the page size doesn't affect the output. It affects only the number of API calls that need to be made to generate the output. Okay, so yeah, so for example, 5,000. This is just five requests. So if 5,000 divided by 50, how much? Oh man, 150 0. How much, man? Oh man. Nga pila lang ka? Wow, 5,000 divided by 50.
5,000?
Divided by 50.
1,000.
Oh. It's going to be 1,000 calls. Sakto ba? Dili, taka naman kalangay. 1,000. 100 siguro 100.
Oh, 5,000?
100. Okay, so this is going to be 100 calls. And this one is just 5 calls, and this one is 1,000 calls. But this one here will not get a timeout if you set it the page size to 50. Okay. So how to use the max items parameter to include fewer items at a time in the AWS CLI output. Use the max items option. Okay, the AWS CLI still handles pagination with the service as described previously, but prints out only the number of items at a time that you specify. So it will only, the max items is just to print, so the number of visible items that you can see. Okay, so the max item. So how to use the starting token parameter? If the number of items output max items is fewer than the number of items returned by the underlying API calls, the output includes the next token. What? If the number of items output max items is fewer than the total number of items returned by the underlying API. So if the number of items returned by the API is 100 and the max item is just 10, okay, so it will the output includes next token, so you will have a next token. Because for example, if you have 200 items, then you set the page size to 1000 and then 100. So it's going to make two API calls to get the 200 items. But if you set the max size to 10, each displayed item here, like was on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then in the lower part, you will have a next token, so that it will, when you get the next token to get the, oh no, the starting, what's it? Yeah, it will give us the next token. But what about the starting token? The parameter starting token cannot be null or empty. If the previous command does not return a next token value, there are no more items to return and you do not need to call that. Okay, maybe for the first one, you're gonna get the next token, and then once you paginate, you get this next token, and that will be the starting token of your next viewing. Not next API call, not next viewing of the items. Okay, so the specified AWS service might not return items in the same order each time you call. If you specify different values for page size and max items, you can get unexpected results with missing or duplicated items. Okay, so if you set different values for page size and max items, there might be duplicated items. To prevent this, use the same number of page size and max items to sync the AWS CLI pagination with the pagination of the underlying service. Okay, you can also retrieve the whole list and perform any necessary paging operation locally. So it is advised to always sync your page size and max size, because was this the specified, it might not return items in the same order. So yeah, for example, S3 might for the first 1100, you got, let's just say 5 items or maybe 3 items. So item 1, then next is supposed to be item 1, item 2, and item 3. If you says the this is like because you set the page size to 3, but then you specify the max max item, you specify the max item to 2, you will first get the item 1, item 2, and then next pagination is you might get item, I don't know how it's gonna get duplicate items. The might not return items in the same order each time you call. If you specify different values for page size and max item, you can get unexpected results with missing or duplicated items. So I don't know how that happens. My brain is very sleepy now. Okay, client-side pager. So the AWS CLI version 2 provides the use of client-side pager program for output. By default, this feature returns all output through your operating system's default pager program. In order of precedence, you can specify the output pager in the following ways: using the CLI pager setting in the config in the default or named profile, using AWS pager environment variable, using the pager go. Yeah, I think that's it.